It is time for a bold new stroke in strategic planning.
I'm Congressman Newt Gingrich, the Republican co-chairman of the Congressional Space Caucus. The United States is at a crossroads in both its prosperity and its very survival. And the high frontier gives us a chance to leapfrog past the huge Russian army to regain our national security through developments in space. The space shuttle gives us an opportunity to develop through the high frontier program answers to the Russian challenge that would put us a decade ahead of the Russians in dominating the high frontier of space. You know, he who controlled the air controlled World War II. The Japanese early on in the Pacific with their carriers, the Americans later on. The Germans early on in the Blitzkrieg with their Stuka dive bombers, the Americans later on. In the future, he who controls space may well control the future of mankind.
Please write to us at this address.
With the offensive arms race spiraling out of control, with the arms control effort stalled, the president began to consider a radical shift in America's traditional nuclear strategy.
Our only purpose is to search for ways to reduce the danger of nuclear war.
To move away from our reliance on mutual assured destruction, the president would consider a long discounted strategy. A defensive system against nuclear attack.
And I think the logical consequence would be that we would have two armed camps, armed with shields primarily.
Edward Teller, father of the H-bomb, has tirelessly campaigned for new weapon systems. At a private meeting with the president, Teller spoke of advanced laser technology, technology he believed could be used to build defensive weapons. Now Teller found a president who shared his strategic views and his faith in American weapon technology.
This Star Wars program was the result of a very small group of advisors with special access, selling pet ideas under unusual circumstances directly to the president.
In March of 1983, without consulting the broad scientific or defense community, Ronald Reagan launched Star Wars.
I call upon the scientific community, those who gave us nuclear weapons, to turn their great talents now to the cause of mankind and world peace, to give us the means of rendering these nuclear weapons impotent and obsolete.
The president's proposal was startling, to move beyond the suicidal terms of mutual assured destruction by erecting a defensive fortress in space. Many Americans, weary of living in the shadow of possible nuclear attack, responded to the idea. But others fear Star Wars is an unworkable and dangerous delusion. Here, an artist's projection of the president's vision.
Fanning into space, a layered defense to protect the country from nuclear devastation. U.S. spy satellites would watch the world below, detect Soviet missiles blasting off, compute the position and speed of each missile, alert battle stations in space, on Earth. The first response, space-based kinetic energy weapons fire high-speed projectiles from hypervelocity guns, intercepting enemy missiles as they are boosted through the atmosphere. Popped up into space, Earth-based nuclear-powered X-ray lasers fire their radioactive rays. Attack rays from land-based excimer lasers are redirected by huge mirrors orbiting in space. Chemical lasers fire beams that burn through the shell of the onrushing missile. Particle beam weapons with pulsing rays join the attack. Still over the atmosphere, the missile bus ejects its cargo, multiple nuclear warheads. As the remaining Soviet missiles now arc towards the U.S., ground-based projectiles are volleyed into space. Their giant steel ribs shatter the enemy weapons. The final minute. The surviving warheads enter the atmosphere above the United States, are attacked by laser-equipped planes. Earth-based lasers and ABM rockets eliminate the last warheads.
As we make a historic announcement about the Golden Dome Missile Defense Shield. That's something we want, and Ronald Reagan wanted it many years ago, but they didn't have the technology, but it's something we're going to have. We're going to have it at the highest level. We have officially selected an architecture for this state-of-the-art system that will deploy next-generation technologies across the land, sea, and space, including space-based sensors and interceptors. And Canada has called us, and they want to be a part of it. This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles even if they are launched from other sides of the world and even if they are launched from space. And we will have the best system ever built. As you know, we helped Israel with theirs, and it was very successful, and now we have technology that's even far advanced from that, but including hypersonic missiles, ballistic missiles, and advanced cruise missiles. All of them will be knocked out of the air. We will truly be completing the job that President Reagan started 40 years ago, forever ending the missile threat to the American homeland, and the success rate is very close to 100%, which is incredible when you think of it. You're shooting bullets out of the air. I'm also pleased to report that the One Big Beautiful Bill will include $25 billion for the Golden Dome to help construction get underway. That's the initial sort of a down deposit. And we have probably, you're talking about, General, we're talking about $175 billion total cost of this when it's completed.
So I did a video previously. It was on whether the Hamas missiles are actually contain warheads, because it doesn't look like they do. It looks like they're glorified fireworks, essentially big smoke bombs, if anything, and they don't have explosive warheads in them. And then taking it one step further, the more I looked into the phony Hamas rockets that are, Hamas is a group controlled by Israel, was created by Israel, the more I've found out that the whole Iron Dome defense system, in fact, is basically just rockets that shoot up in the air and then explode. They don't actually hit any, they don't intercept anything. And it sounds kind of crazy at first, but the more you look into it, actually, there's a lot of proof out there that Iron Dome itself is in fact a hoax. So why would they do that? Why would they fake intercepting Hamas rockets? Well, A, the Hamas rockets themselves don't exist to such a great extent, we were told, and B, it instills a sense of security, sense of pride, and also the most important, C, is the Israeli people feel they're under constant attack, but their government is able to help save them. But it's important to feel like you're under constant attack, otherwise you're not going to just go and genocide a whole bunch of Palestinians. So what proof is there that the Hamas rockets are fake? Well, the lack of proof is actually proof, because if they claim that there's so many hundreds of missiles being fired, there should be some images of buildings that got blown up. There should be images of missiles that are exploding and causing actual damage. The videos we see, if you do a search, it looks like a smoke bomb. And this gas station video is a good example. This is one of the few proof of Hamas missiles we actually see. And notice how it creates an enormous smoke bomb, and there isn't any damage to the asphalt. That is a pretty shitty bomb. That's not even a real rocket. That's just a big smoke bomb. But then you look further, and the Iron Dome system, what it does, it doesn't actually, you never see the Hamas missiles. You never see the Hamas rockets. You only see the Iron Dome rockets going out and exploding. And the more I looked into it, the more even Israelis are pointing out that the Iron Dome system is in fact a big hoax. It doesn't work like we were told it does. In fact, it doesn't actually do much of anything. All it does is send up rockets that explode in the air and don't actually intercept anything.
It is an Israeli-designed, American-funded breakthrough in military technology. Or just possibly a kind of optical illusion. Iron Dome is a missile defense system credited by Israel with destroying nearly 90% of the rockets fired at it during the last conflict with Palestinian militants in Gaza.
1, 2.
Not everyone's convinced.
3.
Because the incoming rockets are invisible to the naked eye, a handful of skeptics say that what we're witnessing may simply be the Iron Dome missiles themselves self-destructing without hitting anything.
I don't know exactly what happened, but I raise the question marks and I would like to have an answer. I asked the IDF, show me your videos, your infrared videos in which you can see almost everything. But they said it's classified.
These Iron Dome missiles, filmed by a wedding photographer, were aimed at rockets fired from Gaza. Israelis believe Iron Dome can protect them from other enemies too. In uncertain times across the Middle East, they hope that seeing is believing. Kevin Connolly, BBC News, Jerusalem.
So this news clip ends with a whole bunch of rockets flying into the air, Iron Dome rockets, and you can see their trails. You see the trails of the Iron Dome rockets, and they all explode kind of like fireworks, but you don't see any actual trails from the alleged Hamas rockets that they're intercepting. That's kind of funny, isn't it? And it's funny how almost every single one of these Iron Dome rockets blows up, supposedly intercepting a Hamas rocket. The whole thing is just, you got to start wondering, is this just, are they just launching basically fireworks? Is Iron Dome basically a fireworks system that goes up there and makes a loud explosion, and the Israelis feel like they intercepted a Hamas rocket?
We intercept them in the middle of the way, in the air, in order to protect the people.
כן, נופלים. אבל לא, גם מיירטים אותם את הרוב. אני יודע. יש אבל פיצוצים, יש פיצוצים.
תעבור אליי.
הנה האזעקה. חבל להוציא להם את האזעקה.
בוא איתנו,
בוא איתנו, בוא.
תשמע איזה פיצוצים.
וואי, זה פה, ידבע. וואי! וואי, זה פה, גנוב.
בוא, כנסו.
בוא, זה פה, קירי. זה הכיפת ברזל נראה לי, לא? כן. וואי.
Okay, so that was supposed proof that they were under bombardment by missiles. However, there's of course no explosions. The kids are all smiling and laughing, and then they walk out afterwards and there's some puffballs in the air.
אנחנו מרגישים וגם שומעים את הכיפה, בום, איך היא מורידה אותם, ואחר כך יוצאים, רואים את כל הזה.
לפגוע כמה שאפשר, אבל במקרה המזל הוא פוגע בבניינים. תראה מה שקרה פה.
What I can say is it's first of all not a 100% solution.
This man claims that a rocket just hit the building. However, it's interesting that the news agency there doesn't zoom in on any sort of damage to the building, and all we see is some water on the ground and maybe the grass looks disturbed. Even that's hard to tell. But why aren't they showing any actual damage if damage actually occurred from this Hamas rocket?
אתם שומעים את ניר דבורי?
השטר הזה, ונילה.
כל הקהל להיכנס עכשיו לתוך האולם למרחב מוגן, חבר'ה, יש לנו מעל הראש.
להיכנס לאולם, כולם!
So again, we see the trail of the Iron Dome rocket, and we hear a loud explosion, yet we never see any trail from the alleged Hamas rocket. Funny how that happens in every single video, isn't it? And I'm gonna finish this one off with, of course, a challenge to you to prove to me, to show me any footage of an Iron Dome rocket hitting a Hamas rocket, and it should be easy enough to prove that two rockets are hitting each other. You're seeing one rocket, but you're not seeing the other rocket. How's that work? Okay, here's an interesting article from an Israeli who's not a complete sellout genocide artist like a lot of them are. Israeli expert says Iron Dome defense is a hoax. An Israeli scientist and award-winning security expert has called the Iron Dome missiles defense system the biggest hoax the world has ever seen. Guess he hasn't heard of 9/11, but according to Dr. Mati Sheffer, today there is no missile which can intercept other missiles or rocket-propelled grenades, and the Iron Dome is a light audio system which blocks Israeli public opinion, and of course itself. In fact, all the explosions that we have seen in the atmosphere are self-destruction, just like what I've been saying here. The Iron Dome did not launch any rocket that could intercept at least one missile fired from Gaza. Of course, we know the truth about these alleged missiles fired from Gaza. They're basically emptied out metal hollow tubes. Sheffer added the concept of open areas is a myth created to amplify the Iron Dome's ability as a missile interceptor. He made an indirect accusation against the Dome's operating staff of misleading the public. The missiles which were intercepted by the Iron Dome and did not reach the ground are hypothetical missiles produced and destroyed in the Dome's computer control room. As of this moment, nobody has seen an intercepted missile fall to the ground. Totally believe it. If it happened, there'd be tons of video proof. The news would be all over it. But there hasn't been any proof. There's nothing. The scientist made his comments after challenge, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so anyway, it's a very interesting article. That's by the Middle East Monitor, and I believe every single word there because I haven't seen any proof at all that these Iron Dome rockets are intercepting anything. And especially during nighttime, you would expect to see a trail. It takes some sort of propulsion system for a rocket to fly through the air, and that burns very brightly. And there you never see any sort of propulsion system from the alleged Hamas missiles that the Iron Dome system is intercepting. Furthermore, they say that Israelis are safe because of the advanced warning system, that they get these automated warnings that a rocket's coming in. Maybe these are just the fictional computer-generated rockets that the Iron Dome system is supposedly blowing up, but in fact never existed in the first place. Like the man says, the missiles which were intercepted by the Iron Dome and did not reach the ground are hypothetical missiles produced and destroyed in the Dome's computer control room. So the whole reason of Iron Dome is to stop non-existent missiles from hitting Israel and create the rage and the public opinion for an excuse for the invasion of Gaza and any other parts of Palestine that exist, and there's few of those left. Because without some sort of aggression by the Palestinians and by the Hamas forces which are created and controlled by Israel, there would be no justification for the invasion of Gaza, and Israel would look even more like a genocidal asshole than they already do.
And I'm deeply proud that President Obama helped make it possible. And I'm proud that with his enthusiastic support, the United States will more than double our investment in Iron Dome in 2015.
In the U.S. media, news anchors, pundits, politicians have extolled the efficacy of the Iron Dome in deflecting the barrage of Hamas rockets that put Israeli lives at risk.
Iron Dome is working. It's minimized casualties and fatalities.
Red flash as it intercepts the rocket. Now, this defense system is proving hugely successful.
Rockets begin coming through the sky, the night sky, and you see rockets come across the sky, and then you see Iron Dome interceptors come up and explode the rockets.
The Iron Dome anti-missile system did its job tracking the missiles, hitting them head-on. destroying them.
As we gazed overhead, we saw the interceptor missiles, the Iron Dome system, doing its job. At least 3 of those rockets shot down just a few moments ago.
Saying Iron Dome is not responsible for the low casualty rate for Israelis. Why?
Well, the low casualty rates are due to an extremely effective system of early warning and sheltering. There are shelters all over Israel that have been built by the government. People have shelters in their homes by law. And there's a warning system that tells you that a rocket might be traveling in your direction. So all you need to do is get into the shelter, into a shelter, and even if the rocket hits your house, you will not be killed.
So what if this whole system warning you of alleged incoming rockets was just telling you about simulated rockets, simulated fake rockets that were coming in, and then they'd be shot down by the exaggerated firework Iron Dome system that just makes loud explosions, and everybody's in their bomb shelters so they can't see the non-rockets being shot down?
So you're in Genesis chapter 1. It says, God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the water. So this is creation. What happened is there was water, and God put a firmament between it. And everything is within the firmament, not out in the universe. Let me prove that to you. And it said in verse 7, God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament. So you see that there's waters which we have under the firmament, sea, land, that's under the firmament. Then there's waters also above. Keep that in mind. Above this firmament. What does firmament mean? Well, firmament, the first word firma, actually just means solid, and ment is just the end of a noun. So it just means solid thing. If you look in Ezekiel chapter 10 in verse 1, it says, Then I looked, and behold, in the firmament that was above the head of the cherubims, there appeared over them, as it were, a sapphire stone, as the appearance of the likeness of a throne. So above the cherubims is God's throne. There's a firmament above the head of the cherubims where God's throne is. Where God's throne is, it's describing a firmament under him. Revelation chapter 4, look in verse 6. And before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. So what is the firmament? It's a sea of glass. It is described by the Bible. The word itself actually does mean solid thing, but according to God's word, it's a sea of glass. And that actually makes sense when you look at Genesis chapter 1. You need something that is hard to divide water from water. Job 37 verse 18. It says, Hast thou with him spread out the sky, which is strong and as molten looking glass. So the firmament is glass. It's as molten looking glass. The firmament was under the throne, that sea of glass, and it is also what divides the water from the waters.